Eber was born 1723 years after the birth of Adam. He fathered Peleg at the age of 34. He lived for another 430 years, having both sons and daughters. He died at the age of 464, or 2147 years after Adam's birth, and lived contemporaneously with Noah for 283 years. Eber lived 64 years longer than Abraham. He lived during Isaac's life until Isaac was 130 years old, and lived during Jacob's life until Jacob was 79 years old. The name Eber is recorded in Jesus' genealogy in Luke 3:35 as Eber-Heber. The name Eber comes from the Hebrew word Ebar, which means to cross over. Based on this root word, Eber means one who has come by crossing over or the one beyond. We can infer that the meaning of Eber's name suggests that he will eventually depart from the land of sin and evil by crossing the river Euphrates, embarking on a journey of faith. The words Eber and Hebrew both originate from the same root word. This fact provides evidence that the Hebrews are descendants of Eber, and that Abraham, the father of the Hebrew nation, by following the path of faith set by Eber, crossed the Euphrates to separate himself from the land of sin and evil. Genesis 14:13. In the Bible, there is a unique expression regarding Eber, Shem, the father of all the children of Eber, Genesis 10:21. The Bible highlights Eber as if praising him even before mentioning the other individuals in Shem's lineage. Arpachshad and Shelah were also descendants of Shem, but by setting them aside, Eber is made the central figure in the genealogy, as if Shem is only the ancestor of Eber's descendants. The main purpose of this verse is to give high regard and praise to the faith and deeds of Eber, inviting us to concentrate on Eber after Shem. Furthermore, the verse means that all the descendants of Eber come from him, Shem, and it also honors the faith of his descendants, not just Eber alone. The change of title, God of Shem, Genesis 9:26, to God of the descendants of Eber, emphasizes that the scope of selection among Shem's descendants has been specifically limited to the descendants of Eber. Thus, Eber is highlighted as a crucial figure linked with Abraham, the father of faith, in the line of Shem's descendants. Genesis 11:10-27. Eber enjoyed the longest lifespan among the direct lineage of Shem, born after the flood, but after the generation of his son Peleg, a special phenomenon occurred, a significant reduction in human lifespans to around 200 years. Directly related to sin, Proverbs 10:27. Eber's long life was a blessing he gained by completely distancing himself from sin and evil and maintaining his faith during the apostasy that took place during the active construction of the Tower of Babel. On the contrary, the shortened lifespan of Eber's descendants is a curse they received by not following their ancestors in crossing the river, but mingling with Ham's descendants and participating in the construction of the Tower of Babel. Eber lived during the time of the active construction of the Tower of Babel, when many people betrayed God and turned away from him. The name of the river crossed by Eber and Abraham is the Euphrates River, which means treasure house of heaven. The fascinating aspect of Euphrates is that it means treasure house. After sowing seeds, the seeds sprout and grow until harvest time, and the wheat is gathered into the heavenly treasure house, but the straw is thrown into a blazing fire. Those who separate themselves from the land of sin and evil by crossing the Euphrates, like Eber, will enter heaven as spiritual wheat. However, those who do not cross the Euphrates, living while building the Tower of Babel and remaining in the world of sin and evil, are the chaff that cannot enter heaven. Matthew 3:12 says, "His winnowing fork is in his hand, and he will clear his threshing floor and gather his wheat into the barn, but the chaff he will burn with unquenchable fire." God's judgment will also fall upon the Euphrates at the end of the world. In Revelation 9:13-15, among the 7 trumpet plagues. The 6th trumpet falls on the great river Euphrates. Revelation 9:14 states, "And it said to the 6th angel who had the trumpet, Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates." Then, according to Revelation 16:12, the 6th bowl is poured out on the great river Euphrates. Revelation 16:12 says, "The 6th angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east." The book that declares the destruction of Babylon is also thrown into the Euphrates, Jeremiah 51:61-64. So, at the end of the world, those who cross the Euphrates and endure the final great tribulation will remain and survive. Thus, people in that era called Abraham Hebrew, which means one who comes by crossing the river. This designation is an acknowledgment that he is a descendant of Eber, Abraham, the 7th generation from Eber, reconnected the orthodox faith that was broken after Eber. So, God of Shem became God of Eber, and now it has become God of Abraham.